Hello and welcome to Grouchy Geeks episode 42. My name's Steve, my co-host is Scott.
Hello.
This episode we've got some news and reviews, and then for the main feature we're going to talk some of the big new TV shows that are out at the moment, which we'll come on to in a bit. So what news in the world of geekdom, Scott?
Okay, I feel like I should say, first of all, it's been a few months since we've recorded.
Yes.
We're not going to say exactly why that was, but we'll just leave it as it was my fault that we've not recorded, and my excuse is phenomenally good. So we'll just leave it there, I think.
Yeah, life stuff gets in the way and things happened. But we're back now, and we'll see how we go. Yeah.
Yes. So my first piece of news, which I'm guessing you're not going to mention because you're not into self-promotion at all, but I'm very pleased to say that I've recently backed a successful Kickstarter.
Oh, that's exciting news, Scott.
It is. Yes. So two people that I'm a big fan of, Steve Arion and Pete Rogers, have got a comic coming out, and they had. So what I actually thought was an overly cheap Kickstarter to fund the publishing of the first issue. Is that right?
That's right.
So tell us a little bit about Flux.
So this is a comic
and how long people have got to get a slice of the action.
Well, this is it. So by the time this comes out, there'll be only a couple of days left, I would think. By the time I get it out, edit it and stuff. So this is the first issue of a 4-issue miniseries. Me and Pete have been working on this for a while, but we, for various reasons there, again, too long to go into, we got to the point where I thought, right, we'll Kickstart it ourselves, but we waited until we had enough material ready that we could put the first issue out now, and pretty early on in the next year, we're going to put out issue 2 and then issue 3. So it's not going to be huge gaps between completing the whole series, which is what we want to do, and get it wrapped up. So yeah, first issue is out there. It's a science fiction thriller involving time travel. There's a video and lots more information on the Kickstarter page. So just look up Flux on Kickstarter. There you go. Enough plugging.
As a customer,
yes,
who has backed a number of Kickstarters in the past, some of which have been successful, some of which haven't, I was really impressed at actually how far along how much you've done of it already.
Yeah.
Like, it looked like you had plenty of pages there done. And it was actually I thought it was a really slick offering, and it was to me, at least the first issue felt close to being done. Is that right?
It's totally done. Yeah.
Okay.
It's ready to basically go. As soon as the campaign's done, we'll be able to send out the PDF copies, and then we'll start getting the physical copies printed, and either we'll send them out in December or, depending on Christmas post and all this sort of stuff, January. It's scheduled for January, but we would rather wait. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, issue 1 is done. Issue 2, the artwork is finished. We just need to colour it and letter it. And most of issue 3 is done. We just need to then get it coloured and lettered. So it's one of these things, we'll do it issue by issue, but we want to make sure everything runs properly and not rush ahead. So we're going to... but yeah, we'll move forward next year with issues 2 and 3.
And it's a 4-issue series, is that right?
That's right. Yep.
Which to me is a good thing. So I know how much of it I need to read.
Yeah.
And it's not like you're just going to go and go forever, and it will just fizzle away into no resolution.
No,
so
it's all written. All 4 issues have been written and done and dusted. So now it's just getting the art finished and getting them out with people and seeing what the response has been. But so far it's been quite positive, so we're very excited.
So apparently there has been some news in the last 4 months that isn't just about you and Pete.
No, who thought? Who would know that? Anyway,
much less important news.
Yeah, obviously, but we'll do what we can.
Okay.
I think last episode, the one before, we talked about David Fincher, the filmmaker, and his very kind of unique way of working with cameras and direction and all this sort of stuff. Well, he's currently busy on other film projects, which is good. But the bad news is it means that the third season of Mindhunter that he's involved with is going to be delayed even longer because of his other film commitments, which is a bit of a shame because I've really been enjoying the TV series.
Yeah, I'm still on season 1, but I thought it was really a masterpiece. Like, it was one of the things that we talked about, and one of the things that we talked about after we recorded was how brilliant the director is at doing storytelling.
Yeah, and
it really comes across watching the TV show that this is I think it comes across anyway that this is an experienced movie director and narrator that's actually helming this up. It doesn't. I feel when I watch it, it doesn't feel like I'm watching a TV show.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Yeah, I mean there was a 2-year gap between season 1 and 2, just because Fincher was so busy. But equally, he's not willing to hand the reins over to someone, which is good and bad. Bad because it means a delay. Good, but because it means what you get will be consistent. It'll have a very same look and feel. But there's also the wait. So I'm kind of a little bit annoyed, but at least I'm hoping that we will get a season 3 and beyond. But wait and see.
Cool.
So what news have you got?
So, a piece of news that I hope you might be able to help me fill in the blanks on a little bit. Okay. So, I'm a huge Star Trek fan. I like the new Star Trek. A lot of people don't, but I really like the new Star Trek. But after the third movie in the new Star Trek series, it didn't do as well as they hoped, and it looked like it was fizzling away to nothing. But it appears just this week there's new news on the fourth movie in the series.
Yeah.
And the big news is the writer and director is going to be Noah Hawley, who has previously been associated with the TV show of Fargo, which I've not watched, but I've heard really good things about.
Yeah, likewise. I've also not watched it. I've just watched ones I haven't got round to, but I'm going to at some point.
Cool. Yeah, so we've heard lots of things, and as far as I know, it's still going on about Quentin Tarantino doing a movie, or there's not going to be a fourth movie at all, or it's not going to. We can only, because of finances, we can choose between Kirk and Spock, but we can't have both in the movie, which is ridiculous. But at long last, this is a piece of good news, because it sounds like I've heard such good things about Fargo, and actually to have that guy in charge of the new movie sounds like it's a good choice to me. It's encouraging. It's definitely encouraging sounds. Last time it was talking about they wanted Chris Pine obviously to come back, but they also wanted Chris Hemsworth, and it was some kind of time travel-y, timey-wimey thing where Kirk and his dad would adventure together, but they got into arguments over money, and so it fell apart before it went anywhere. Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Maybe they're doing a completely different story, and they won't get Chris Hemsworth. But I don't know. I think I'm more excited about watching Picard than I am about seeing another film, even though I enjoyed the previous ones. I'm so excited about watching Picard. Yeah, and we should say we went to a convention together. Yes. And we were close enough to hear the applause that Patrick Stewart got when he came and gave a talk at the convention. We didn't go to the talk, but if the applause is anything to go by, we couldn't get one. Yeah, if his reception is anything to go by, then it's a good sign, I think. Yeah, I mean the trailers we've seen for it look brilliant, and I'm so excited about that if they didn't do another film with this crew, I'd be okay with that. Yeah, I'd substitute one for the other. Yeah, I generally when a show comes out, I can take it or leave it. The Picard show, I feel very invested in. Well, yeah. So I'm hoping that they do a really good job. I really hope so too. I don't want to get too excited in case I get disappointed by it, but I'm fairly positive about what I've seen so far. Cool. And the last trailer was really great, so encouraging sounds. Nice. Bit of disappointing news, but also it's kind of understandable with the way things are going. So Marvel have cancelled Runaways
The third season that's coming up will be the final one, and it runs on Hulu at the moment. They'd already cancelled Cloak and Dagger after the second season, so that wasn't going to come back for the third. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is wrapping up next year, its final season on ABC, which they've already said. So that means there will be almost no Marvel TV shows existing anywhere except from outside of Disney Plus, which is not too surprising.
No, and is of course to be expected. But have they really? So whenever I hear nowadays about Disney cancelling one of their shows, it feels like we're just cancelling it for that channel, and we're now taking ownership of all of our properties, and we're just going to do the good ones on Disney Plus. But that's not the case with Runaways.
It sounds like they're just trimming them all down, really.
Okay.
So S.H.I.E.L.D. was always going to wrap up next season. And, maybe there would have been a spin-off, or they were going to do it at one point, or they were going to do a spin-off, and it didn't happen for various reasons. I think they're just basically going to put all of their eggs in one basket. You might get something really obscure, but I just think they're going to shove it all on Disney Plus and just say, if you want Moon Knight or whatever else is coming up, or Loki, or, Hawkeye or whatever, you have to go to Disney Plus. That's what they look like they're doing, which is understandable, but equally I can't afford to subscribe to another service, so I'm going to wait a while, wait until they do a free month, subscribe, binge a bunch of stuff, and then jump off. And then a couple of years later, they'll do another free month, and I'll do the same again, because that's the only way to watch some of the shows that I really want, especially if you release them weekly on Disney Plus. Yeah,
so I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I think that I really don't want to be subscribed to like half a dozen things that's costing me £100 a month or something like that.
Yeah.
But the thing, I feel pretty much caught up with the stuff that I'm interested in on Netflix.
Right.
So actually, I think the model is going to be, I'm going to dump Netflix for a few months or a year or something like that, switch to Disney Plus, watch everything that I want to watch that's current on Disney Plus, cancel that subscription, then go on to the next service, which might be Netflix or it might be, somebody else's service or something like that. But I can just see myself, jumping between subscriptions to different things in order to catch up on stuff. But I don't see, I'm not so desperate to see things the day that they come out that I particularly feel like I need to be subscribed to everything. And it's not like a satellite subscription where if you weren't subscribed to this thing, when the show came out, that was your one opportunity to see it. And once it's gone, it's gone. Netflix has got all of the stuff that they've produced on Netflix at the moment. So it almost encourages that model of, I think, jumping from service to service and just having one on the go at a time.
But we know that people have a fear of missing out.
Yeah.
And I think it will also encourage piracy with those people who must see it now, don't want to wait, can't bear to be 6 months behind, so they'll just start pirating stuff to try and keep up, I think.
Yeah, well, that's already happening.
There you go. Anyway, do you have any more news? I've only got one other bit of news.
So I've only so apart from the fact that we're now, according to the world of Blade Runner, we're now in the future because the original Blade Runner happened as of recording yesterday.
Well, wow.
So that's a bit weird considering that I've been watching that film avidly for the last over 30 years now. But so something, we both play computer games. We don't really talk about the games that we play all that often, but Have you played The Witcher?
Yes.
So how do you feel about The Witcher TV show coming to Netflix?
I'm really excited about it because I know that the creator was essentially ripped off for decades with the computer games. He didn't get any money from them. And he obviously made money through the books, but nowhere near the kind of George R. R. Martin level of cash.
Yeah.
And now they're in a TV series. He's going to be getting some more cash from this. So it's good news for him. And it's also good news for people who haven't read the books, because that a lot of people will be desperate to go and find out more. And it's going to take over a year to do the next series. And there's a bunch of books already out there. They're just waiting to be read. And that'll make more fans of the TV show. It's one of these things where being ahead of the game so far is going to help both the books and the TV show. So it's all good news for me.
Yeah, so my understanding is as well that they've paid him directly for the rights to the Witcher books.
Yeah.
And it hasn't gone to the people that created the computer game.
Yeah.
Even though the pictures that I've seen really look like the computer game. But the good news is that I think I found this out yesterday, that it's already been renewed for season 2.
Yeah.
Which is even before season 1 comes out.
Yeah.
Which to me is like a really good sign. You know, somebody with an enormous checkbook has watched it and thought, we're onto a winner here. Therefore, I'm just going to greenlight it before anybody else has seen it.
Yeah, because we know they're doing a Lord of the Rings TV show. Mm-hmm. We know that they're doing another Game of Thrones show, but neither of those are out now. Neither of those can be watched. Whereas The Witcher comes out next month, the first season,
something like that. Yeah.
So it's going to come out, and the whole lot's going to drop because it's a Netflix, and people are going to be desperate for more. So someone's, as you said, watched it and gone, yeah, we can get a 2-year head start on all these other shows. And by the time their first seasons come out, our second season will be out, and we're going to have a load of really eager and desperate fans for more. And, makes sense to me. Get on it, do it now. Henry Cavill looks the part. It looks really good. It's going to be not what some people will expect, I think, because it borders on horror in places, because it's quite terrifying what he does for a job. So there's no singing elves in his books, that's for sure.
No. And I have a real feeling that people are going to end up very disappointed with the Lord of the Rings show, because there's almost certainly a lot of people out there that think, oh, they're doing a Lord of the Rings show. I really want to see, the Adventures of Frodo as played by Elijah Wood again, and nothing could be further from the truth, because it's set. It's set thousands of years before that, is it not?
It's well before The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. So, and they're making up the stories, as far as I know.
Yeah. So I think people, at least with The Witcher, either you've heard of it and you're really pleased they're doing it, or you've not heard of it at all, and then you're coming in without any prior expectations. The people that have, everybody in the world has heard of Lord of the Rings and seen the movies. And I think that builds up an expectation that is not going to get met in a lot of cases, I think. Yeah,
I mean, is it with the Game of Thrones, it's like 1,000 years before the TV show. Mm-hmm. So there'll be vague connections in that someone will have the same surname. But apart from that, it won't connect to the show, which makes sense. Whereas the Lord of the Rings one, you're still going to have stuff about the Ring of Power and all the rest of it. I'd rather it was before the Ring of Power had even been invented.
Yeah.
If they're making stuff up, why not just go, it's set in the same worlds. You're still going to have some familiarity with the places and the races and the different bits and bobs, but it's nothing to do with the Ring of Power, nothing to do with any of that. We're not going to try and crowbar something in so you can go, look what we did there. Isn't that clever? Mm-hmm. That'll pay off in Hobbit. It's like, no, don't do that. Just do a totally different story somewhere in this world. Why not? You've paid for the rights. Mm-hmm. Do it.
Anyway, never mind. If only they listen to us.
Yeah, what do they know? Fools. My last bit of news is actually game-related. Google, who are releasing the Stadia, have you heard about this?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So this is for those who don't know, this is the streaming service where you'll be able to play games through your TV. You don't need a box. You don't need any kind of console. You'll essentially get a controller, broadband connection through your TV, a subscription service, and you'll be able to play a bunch of games. They've just announced that they're doubling the number of games on the initial launch from 12 to 22, and I think it's going to be coming out. I think it's
out.
Oh, there you go.
So it's very recent though, like in the last day or two.
Yes,
I think it came out.
I knew it was coming soon. Yeah, so they've doubled the number of games. So there's familiar games that people will know, and I guess we're going to see how it goes. It's how does it hold up to the pressure? How do the servers cope? I think one of these, like many of these things, you can try it at the beginning and it's going to be quite hit and miss. But give it 6 months, give it a year, and it'll probably be stable and settle. There'll be a bunch more games. The price will trickle down a little bit, and then it might be worth jumping on.
So I think, I followed it really closely because I'm really interested in this sort of stuff. I think it's the way that things are going to go in the future. So everybody is doing something like this. So Microsoft have got xCloud, which isn't out yet, but it's coming out, which is a streaming service to play Xbox games.
Right.
Sony have got their own equivalent coming out. For the gaming that I do, because I've got quite a low-powered laptop, I just use a computer in the cloud anyway,
right?
And it's not like a service like Stadia is or xCloud or something like that, but I just basically can connect to a cloud-based computer and play games through that. And a huge advantage is that it costs me about 40 pence an hour to play games,
right?
Which, if I looked at the computing that I have at home, cannot play any of these games at all.
Okay.
So if I was looking at the cost that it would be to me to buy a gaming computer to play these games, that's then like frozen in time until I buy the next one. There's a lot of hours that I can play games for at 40 pence an hour until I get, the cost of dropping the money for a gaming computer.
Yeah.
So I think it's I think it's potentially the future of things. I've heard bad things about Stadia, so I think the service itself is really good. I think at the moment, even though I think for the games that they support, they're charging full price for the games, and then if you cease to subscribe to their service, you just lose access to all of them. So it's kind of like having Netflix, but you have to not only subscribe to Netflix, but then buy the movies on top of that.
Oh, that's no good. No.
But I think it's the future of things, and I think it's the direction that things will go in. I think at the moment their model is flawed, but I think it's the correct model, and Google are going to make it work by hook or by crook, I think.
Yeah, it's definitely a wait and see model. Others will imitate it, probably do it better, and everyone's going to have to evolve. Just like the TV services, games will have to evolve to the next level.
Yeah, and the advantage, like you say, you can play it on, just with a Chromecast plugged into your TV, you can play it on your TV in 4K. But equally, as well, you could play it, when you were on the bus, you could play exactly the same games with exactly the same graphical quality on your mobile phone, as long as you've got fast enough internet, or on your laptop. You can just take your games with you and they start up instantly. You don't have to install them. There's loads of really good things about it, and I think it's really exciting. But I agree that it's not quite ready for the mass market there. But then again, the people that they're trying to appeal to at the moment are the people that will buy an Xbox on the first day it comes out, sort of thing.
Yeah. I guess I'm going to wait and see. I'm not going to jump on it just yet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. Should we go on to the main feature?
Yep, sounds good. Hello, welcome back. So for our main feature, we're going to talk about some of the big new shows that have just come out, because we're at that time of the year where all the latest wares, and it's not as important as it used to be because Netflix will just put out an entire series on a Tuesday. But big stuff is still coming out around this time of year, and we've watched some of them, and we're just going to discuss them quite openly and tell people what we think. Yeah. So what are we going to talk about first?
Well, we should say there's going to be some spoilers in this. Not everything, but because of the nature of the shows we're going to be talking about, if you've not seen them and you don't want any spoilers, then perhaps you may have to come back to this. But let's talk about Watchmen first, because we're both obviously big fans of the original comic book series, and when they've done the film, which I thought was okay, had some good bits, had some bad bits, and now the TV show's come out under the helm of Damon Lindelof, he of Lost and The Leftovers fame, and this is set after the events in the Watchmen film and the comic, I should say, because the continuity runs from the comic and not from the film. For those who've not read Watchmen, I'm going to spoil that as well. But there is something at the end of the story that is essentially a giant space squid that lands on Earth and kills about 3 million people. That was not in the film. They changed it for the film, but the TV show takes its prompts from the comic book series. So there is a giant squid alien.
Yes. So I really enjoyed the film because I absolutely loved the books, and it felt like the film was as faithfully as it could manage. It was trying to recreate the books, not perfectly, and they changed a few things, like the end. Yeah. But I can actually understand why they changed it. And this, so I've said this to you before, and I think I'm going to stand by this. The Watchmen TV show, to me, it really feels like Damon Lindelof thought he had a really cool idea for a TV show. And then somebody rocks up and says, do you fancy doing Watchmen? And then he just took his idea for the TV show and put it in that format. But I haven't. So I've only watched the first couple of episodes. And you've watched more than me. So I don't know whether that changes. But it to me, it really doesn't feel like it owes that much to Watchmen.
So yes and no in some ways. There's little nods there again, and there are tying things to the comic. There's exploration of characters done in a similar way to Watchmen, and one of the characters in the TV show is called Looking Glass, and he's someone who works with the police, and he has this silver mask on all the time, and one of the episodes focuses on his backstory, which then feeds into the current story. And I feel like I've just seen it all before. I feel like I've read it before, not in something else, but I feel like it's just going over familiar ground told in a slightly different way that I've seen in the comics. I mean, we've seen there are people wandering around with Rorschach masks on, and they've perverted the idea of him and what it was and what he stood for and the concept of him to something of their own, which, people do that all the time throughout history. We've seen them take a symbol from one thing and turn it to mean something else. That's fine. I can see that as a nod to something in history. But it just feels like, even though it's set within the world of Watchmen, the connection is pretty tenuous to the source material in some ways.
That's the big problem that I have with it.
I mean, they've changed some things. Like Dr. Manhattan is still wandering around on Mars doing what he does because. But the TV show is set quite a few years after, and I can't believe that for all that time, that's what he's been doing, and that's just it. He's just been pissing around on Mars, and it's had no impact on Earth, or we haven't seen a whole new race of aliens or something. I think they've basically just done that so we can kind of forget about him. But then why bother mentioning him? Why not just say he went off and he's travelling the galaxy as far as he disappeared. He got bored of Mars after a year and he's gone. So they kind of, I feel like they're crowbarring things in to make you feel connected to the source material, like the Rorschach mask. It didn't have to be Rorschach; could have been anybody.
Yeah, and that's really how it feels to me. That they've got, like you, I have some problems with the execution, but I think they've taken a show where the overarching idea is good and is interesting, but they're just tying it back to Watchmen by throwing in the occasional line that refers back to people like Dr. Manhattan and Rorschach and things like that. And it doesn't, at least at the moment, it doesn't feel to me like it's a sequel to Watchmen. And it's, I'm interested in seeing where it goes, but it doesn't feel to me like it's going anywhere particularly at the moment.
Well, no, because there's Ozymandias is in it. It's Jeremy Irons playing a much older version of him, which again is indicating that time has passed. And after the first two episodes of him in it. I had an inkling of what was going on with his character, and a few episodes on, I was right. I was proven right. And it's kind of dull what's happening with him in the end. It was really predictable for me, but equally, once I had the answer, which is almost there on the show, it's kind of dull. It's kind of boring. And I expected something better. And also, for the man who's supposed to be the smartest man on Earth, it's not very bright. He's not doing anything particularly clever. Laurie is still in it, as a much older Silk Spectre now. And occasionally she goes on this. It's so pointless. There are blue phones in some places that Dr. Manhattan has set up, apparently, which allows you to ring him.
Right. Oh God.
I'm not kidding. I wish I'd made it up. I'm like, why would he do that? He said he was done with Earth and people, unless someone else has set them up so they can just send messages out to him on Mars. In which case, why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense. So either way, it's just a tool that they set up so that Laurie can go on the phone and record a message, then gets transmitted to Mars for him to answer, or not answer, because he doesn't answer any of them. And I'm just like, they've invented something to try and give her a reason to do something, to then tie it back to the show, to show that the film, that she's still connected to him, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it just feels very thin. And I think I've seen 6 of the 9 episodes, and I think I'm just going to stop. I'm not that invested in seeing how the last 3 wrap up. I'll probably read a summary and go, okay. But there's just too much other stuff that's more interesting and more gripping, that I'm more invested in the characters, you know?
So the whole point, at least in the comic, to me, of Dr. Manhattan, of his plot line, was that basically he was human, and he gains all of these powers and essentially becomes this other being.
Yeah.
And in the comic, it studies him as somebody that's, if you take somebody that's been given all these powers, then they cease to be human and they cease to be able to relate to human beings. And to me, him disappearing off to Mars is basically him divorcing himself away from the human race.
Yes, exactly.
And the whole Mars thing felt to me like he's just temporarily there, getting his stuff together until he just disappears from the solar system completely.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of setting up phones for people to ring him seems like a total contradiction to everything that you know about him in the comic books or the movie or anything like that. And that to me is disappointing because so from what I've watched so far, it doesn't have that much to do with Watchmen. But at the same time, it doesn't seem to directly contradict Watchmen.
No.
And that what you've just said does. And that's a real shame.
Watchmen was a story on several levels. It was talking about different things, whether it's superheroes, whether it's about the nature of heroism, whether it's the story, you read it and there's different levels all the way through and you can see it. This is trying to do that whilst also tying itself back to the Watchmen mythos. And there's other things going on. And it feels like it's just tangling itself up in a knot. Maybe it'll all come clear in the end. Maybe it'll all make perfect sense. I just don't think it will, based on the person who's running the show and his back catalogue. Notorious for just lots of questions and questions and questions and never paying them off. And then go, yeah, but it's about the journey. No, it's not. I didn't enjoy the journey. It annoyed me. Don't just lay stuff out and not answer it. And I'm getting that feeling again, which is why I think I'm going to pull the plug now.
Yeah, and I'm going to put it out there. I even though he's become crazy, the stuff that Alan Moore did back in the day, I think was magnificent. And I don't think Damon Lindelof should be allowed to wash his car, quite frankly.
Yeah, but I think that's fair. Yeah, it's intriguing. It's not that interesting a show. It's mildly passable. I mean, the actors are great. They're really good. They've got such odd material to work with, and they're doing their best. They really are. Like the main character played by Regina Hall, fascinating character, fantastic actress, complicated backstory to hers, and I'd be more interested in just a story about a show just about her doing stuff. And like the flipping of things where the superheroes, the policemen now have to wear masks because if people found out who they were, and I was like, no, I'm not. It just feels very, very. They've done it just cause. It hasn't been thought out clearly to me, and I'm starting to see the cracks in it. So.
Okay, yeah, I was going in that direction after 2 episodes. So
yeah, I persisted to give it more of a chance, but yeah. I think I've given it plenty by now.
And to be honest, I'm kind of glad that it's not going to exist for much longer. Like, I as I get older, I come much more around to Alan Moore's way of thinking that he shouldn't just don't go back to these things that were classics.
Yeah. I mean, and they've also said, people have already asked and said, "Oh, is there another season?" And the answer is they've designed the season 1 so it'll tell a story and act as a complete story by itself, so that if they do more, great. If they don't, it makes sense. Great, that's good. However, the worrying thing is then, if they then try to do a second season and they've got nothing to build on because they've answered most of the stuff from the first season, what the hell are they going to do then?
Yeah, well, this comes down to my problem with Damon Lindelof, that he will do stuff because it's cool without giving any thought about whether it makes sense or whether it ties into the plot or anything like that.
Or if he should do it.
Yeah.
Not just because it's cool. I've talked to someone else about this today, that DC are doing this big crossover for all of their TV shows. Great, it's based on an event from the comics called Crisis on Infinite Earths. And they were getting lots of actors in from different versions of the characters from different TV shows over the years. Great. They asked Michael Rosenbaum, who played Lex Luthor in Smallville, if he'd be interested in coming on to do something. And he said, yeah, I'm interested. What's the story for my character as Lex Luthor? Can I see some pages? And then their answer was, well, no, but, we'll come back to you with something. And I was like, hang on, you've just done the Lindelof thing of, wouldn't it be cool to get Lex Luthor from Smallville? Yeah. What's the story? Oh, I haven't got that. We'll work it out later. Just get him in. Get him on, then we'll do it. It's like, no. Do the story that's really cool so he can come on and do his part. Don't crowbar him in for 10 minutes and then go, well, what was the point of having him? You've done nothing with the character. And I feel that's what Lindelof's doing.
Yeah. So was it, I can't remember whether it was you that showed me this, but there's a YouTube video where they do a sketch about Damon Lindelof.
It's one of my favourite sketches ever. It's called Why Damon Lindelof is So Annoying. Just look at that on YouTube and watch it, and it makes perfect sense of everything he's ever done.
I mean, to be fair, Steve, if you Google Damon Lindelof annoying, you're gonna come back with about 1.5 million hits.
Yeah.
But I should say it's a college humor sketch. So if you search college humor and Damon Lindelof, then you'll hit it, and it's hysterical.
5 minutes of your life. I promise you will not regret watching it. And if you share some of the views that we've talked about with Lindelof, it'll make you laugh. I think I've watched it about 50 times. I should have just watched that instead of Watchmen.
Yeah. Or you should have watched it before Watchmen, just to remind you not to waste time watching Watchmen.
True. Okay, let's move on to something more positive.
Yeah, let's move on to something that I've also seen the first 2 episodes of, although they're ridiculously short. I don't know if you think this as well.
The second episode was.
Yeah, this is The Mandalorian.
So the first episode, I think, was about 45 minutes.
Something like that.
And then the second one was 30. So it almost feels like they should have just done the first episode as an extra long one, like a TV movie, and then done, I don't know, 40, 45-minute episodes thereafter, but they haven't. But anyway.
So, what do you think of it?
I love it. I actually love it. I'm not totally sure on the timeline of when this is set, though. Are you?
I believe that I think in the first episode, they refer to it being basically after Return of the Jedi.
Right, okay, so the Empire's gone, and this is before any of the new stuff.
I think so, yeah.
Right, okay, that makes sense, yeah. So, for those who haven't seen it or don't know what it's about, back in the day, in Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, you had a character called Boba Fett walking around in this really cool-looking armor. He didn't say a lot. He was pretty nifty. Bounty hunter that went after Han Solo, of course, famously.
Mm-hmm.
And really interesting character. For 40 years, people are wanting to know more about him. They did some stuff in the prequel films, and now we're getting a TV series based on a Mandalorian. How he ties back to all of the other stuff, I'm not sure, and that will probably be explored a little bit. But I also get the feeling it's not about that at all. It's just about him having adventures, and the story is the adventure. The story isn't who he is, at least not all of it.
No, I think you're right. And I think, so there was two things this week that have helped restore my faith in Star Wars.
Okay.
One of them is a computer game, which has just come out, which is Jedi Fallen Order.
Right.
Which is set also round about the same time, but is about somebody that has sort of nascent force powers and is trying to be tracked down by the Empire, and they escape and they go on all sorts of adventures. And the other is The Mandalorian. And I think that having watched The Mandalorian, it really brings home to me something that I've been thinking for a long time, which is George Lucas has created a really, really interesting universe in creating Star Wars. And actually there's loads of interesting stories that can be told that aren't just about the Skywalkers.
Yes.
And aren't just about the battle between the rebellion and the Empire. And you don't need to go there again. And actually The Mandalorian really demonstrates that, because I think it's fascinating to watch loads of all this Star Wars stuff going on that you're familiar with, but not have the baggage of, this is, at the moment at least, he's not like fighting for the future of the galaxy or to defeat this enormous enemy. It's actually a much more small story from what I've seen of it, and I think it benefits from that, and actually just seeing somebody walk through this fascinating world, and we see lots of things that we're familiar with, but it doesn't have the same baggage that the new movies have got attached to them.
Yeah, I was watching a review of someone else who talked about this, and they said that, like you, they enjoyed the fact that it was set in this world, but they didn't. The people who have made The Mandalorian obviously haven't felt the need to do the nods in the same way. So at one point, Mandalorian, it's minor spoiler, he walks into a cantina and he's talking to someone and he goes to meet someone. He said, but the thing that they liked most about that scene is that in the background, it didn't have the music that you've seen from, there's only two songs. It's like, no, there are other tunes and there are other musicians and there's other music or no music. You don't have to have that. You don't have to have the guy walk past in the background who goes, I don't like you. My friend doesn't like you. You don't have to have that bloke or that alien type or that, there's I don't know, 100 types of alien in Star Wars. And we got to see, I think, a couple of new ones and familiar ones who were bit part characters. And I thought, great, I've not seen one of them in a while. That's interesting. What's he? Right, he's some sort of bounty hunter or something else, and it was just, it's familiar but it's fresh, because as you said, he's not connected to the saving the galaxy story. It's this bloke's trying to earn a living and live his own way, and he's a bounty hunter with some kind of honor system, and it feels very much like the old school spaghetti westerns in other ways. Yes,
and when they do have something in there that you're familiar with, it feels like there's a plot reason to have that familiar thing in there.
Yeah.
Whereas actually in the movie, so I really liked Rogue One and I liked Solo, a Star Wars story.
Yeah.
But it felt like when they put something familiar into those films, it's like they say, hey, everybody, look, here's something that you've seen before. Don't you feel reassured and comfortable that this is something that you've seen before? Whereas in this, if it feels like there's a reason to put things in that you've seen before, and they make sense, and they tell you a little bit more about that particular thing, and it feels to me like it's a consistent universe. And I know that so I'm somebody that's never really watched like a huge number of westerns or anything like that, but it feels to me like I'm watching a sci-fi western.
Yeah.
It just kind of has that same sort of tone and feeling to it that you're watching, this sort of unnamed character go through, a frontier.
I mean, so I'm a big Western fan, and a lot of the early Clint Eastwood films, like The Man with No Name and a bunch of other ones, where he is a lone character who comes in, doesn't have a name, he's a gunslinger, comes in, solves a job, and moves on. It's not him changing the world, it's him doing something in a small area and then going on. It's just telling a story within it. And it's the fact that some films doesn't really talk much. You don't even know his name. And it's kind of the same with The Mandalorian. We don't know his name. He does talk a little bit. We get glimpses of his history in very tiny flashbacks that give you just teasers, which is fine. You don't need to know more because you can start to piece together, or you can make guesses. And that's the interesting part. They don't go back and reveal that when he was a kid he cried because someone killed his pet dog or whatever. It's like we don't need to see everything. And sometimes if you show too much Darth Vader, it can ruin the character in the present.
Yeah, and it feels to me, and you might disagree with this completely, to me it feels like the closest thing that we have to another version of Firefly, in the sense that it's like it has the sort of Western feel, and we learn about this huge universe that's got loads of richness in it through just following a story about a very small number of people. And it isn't this, or it could turn into this huge epic story, but at the moment it's being told just by focusing on people that are wandering through this amazing world.
Yeah, I kind of hope it doesn't go really big. I'd be less interested in that because we've seen it time and time again. I mean, it's going to have to build at some point. The story is going to move towards something. That's fine, but I don't want it to be that, all of this leads to something which then saves the galaxy further down the line. I don't want the final payoff to be that thing of, like you said, look, it leads to this, and then that leads to, episodes, and you're like, no, don't do that. Just tell a really interesting, cool story off to one side, set within this amazingly rich galaxy. Do that. Don't do the other thing.
And actually, we've watched so many things in the past that to actually not know the direction that something is going in is really refreshing. And I feel like that in this case as well. Like, I watched episode 1 and I was like, it's completely unclear to me what's going to happen in episode 2 and beyond. And I watched episode 2 and equally I feel like I just have no idea. They're telling a really interesting story, but it's not clear to me the direction that they're taking this story in.
We haven't really spoiled it too much, but is there anything else you want to say about it?
I don't think so, because it feels like to me like Watchmen is trying to tackle big ideas, and this feels like the opposite of that. It's just trying to tell an interesting story, and it's not focused on, you can imagine, the pitch for the Watchmen show, or plenty of other things out there. They're coming in and they're saying it's about saving the universe, and that gets greenlit. Whereas this is actually it's a really tiny story so far, and it does well because of that. And I just don't think there's much that I can possibly add to it. I don't know about you.
No, not too much without spoiling it. Without giving too many spoilers away. I mean, I'm like the actor. The actor's Pedro Pascal. Under the Helmet, who I've seen in things like Triple Frontier, which is a film on Netflix. He's in The Second Equalizer. He was in Game of Thrones. So he's a familiar face and voice to me, and I really like him as an actor. So I'm curious to see if at any point he will take the helmet off and we find out more about his past. But I'm happy for them to kind of just trickle it out and have the main focus be on the story in the present, so that we don't get 3 episodes focused in the past. I'm like, I don't want it to be constantly jumping back and forth in time, because I think it can just disrupt the storytelling.
And I'm so pleased that in episode 1 there wasn't a big 10-minute long scene where he takes his helmet off and it's about him repairing his wounds and stuff like that. The fact that we don't know a whole lot about him, to me, is the real strength of it.
I also love the fact that Carl Weathers and Werner Herzog is in the show as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, especially after the comments of Martin Scorsese going on about TV and all this kind of other stuff isn't real film and isn't that, and then Werner Herzog's turned around and gone, what we're doing on TV is pretty much a really cool film.
Yeah.
So it's the point that I am now in it.
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's just a brilliant show so far.
Yeah. So we don't want to give too much away, so we'll just sort of say it's definitely worth watching. If you can get a hold of The Mandalorian, then do so. Watchmen, well, send us your thoughts, but I think I'm done. Put a fork in me. I'm done on it.
Okay.
But see if you can, if you've got any other ideas, let us know. Get in touch with us in the usual ways. You can email us, grouchogeeks@gmail.com. You can come onto the Facebook group. You can go onto Geek Syndicate and get in touch with us through there. And don't forget to leave us an iTunes review. But yeah, that's it for this month. We're back for now, so we'll try and keep you get another episode out before the end of the year. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, it's good night from me.
And it's good night from him.
Good night.
Good night.